This talks about how we and other stakeholders working with us have made the effort towards influencing urban health policy in India, which historically is a rural country. So I had grown up reading in school, India lives in its villages. And I think that must be true for many people who have been in other South Asian countries. I'm sure you grew up reading the same. I'm sure, Samuel, you grew up reading the same. So how did we, what did we learn? So I'm going to share with you 8 lessons, which I think our experience shows that can be adapted and applied in other settings. The first lesson is that it's good to review the government documents that are existing. There might be something hiding in that document which could be a supportive note already written by a policymaker at some point in time. We found 3 such documents. In India, there are these 5-year plans that are developed by the government. They are very, very elaborate documents. Some of them are available on the internet, so you can have a look at them. The most recent one which has been released is a 12th 5-year plan for 2012 to 2017. So we found the 5-year plan document had a note on urban health. We found that the National Population Policy had a special note on the urban poor, and the National Health Policy, all of them were Government of India documents, also had a note which said that there needs to be focus on urban health. And we had nothing to do with these documents. Somebody else did that. We just dug them out. The second lesson is that it'll be useful to unmask the urban health disparities. We did it through disaggregation of DHS data. In some other countries, you might have to create data if this is not available, but wherever DHS data is available, often the urban sample is large enough for it to be used. So like you can see here, and Vani already discussed this thing in a different presentation, that the nutrition disparities are quite sharp. So it brings to attention the need for making an effort for a segment of the population, which has probably been ignored because the aggregate urban statistics give the impression that urban areas are well off, and you don't need to do anything in urban areas. You have to focus only on the villages. But the fact that they are growing and there is deprivation also growing is sometimes missed. This is the other indicator on infant and child mortality. This is an older indicator because we have used the 2005 and 6 data. The third lesson is that spatial maps of cities with listed and unlisted poverty clusters. I've avoided the use of the word slum because I think in different countries they have different words. So whichever way we describe a non-affluent cluster in a city, so if all those clusters are plotted, they serve as important visual tools, and we'll just see one such map. And this evidence regarding undercounting of urban poverty requires several examples, because the first time I did it only with the Indore evidence, and in a big government meeting everybody pounced on me. They said that you are just bringing illegal slums on the domain of the health providers and it will be very complicated. So, but eventually they listened subsequently. So we'll see the city maps as a powerful tool, and they are developed with city stakeholders. They are not developed in isolation by our team. We involve all the stakeholders and develop them with those stakeholders. This is information from 5 cities of listed and unlisted slums, telling you that there's a large proportion of unlisted slums. This is the map I was mentioning. This is the map of Meerut, which is about 3 hours outside of Delhi. Right now you see the blue dots, which are the listed slums. And the blue dots dissolve, you see the red ones, which are 85 unlisted slums. And this is the more complete picture, which would have been missed if we had gone only by the municipal list. And we would have missed a sizable population. This is another map where we have also shown some health facilities. This is from a mega city, Mumbai, maximum city. Somebody has called it the maximum city. The fourth lesson that we learned, which we feel can be adapted in other countries, is bring stakeholders together to build consensus and advocate. So we convened stakeholder meetings, seminars and conferences were utilized to have a session on the subject. We tried to throw out articles in the public domain through peer-reviewed journal, but we also used the media, like newspapers and the electronic media, and we realized that many stakeholders started recognizing this as an important issue. And this built a voice at various levels, city level, state level, national level. It was a gradual process of building a body of people who felt this way. So this is a visual of the stakeholders coming together and thinking. The fifth lesson that we learned is, it is important to create opportunities for an interaction between the poor communities or the deprived communities and the officers. So we created such opportunities and presented them to the authorities, and they interacted directly with the health administrators. We invited authorities to slums at events. For example, if they are holding an event to promote healthy and well-nourished babies, healthy pregnant women, so the authorities were invited to those activities. And community groups also shared their experiences at state and national fora with policy makers to inform the policy dialogue. They also shared their experiences with media. The sixth lesson we learned was to keep the advocacy messages few and simple. And this slide gives you some simple messages which you can adapt in your particular setting, like the urban population, the future growth, likely future growth. So this is an interesting message, that there are about 2.7 million births taking place among the urban poor every year. So it's not a small number of births which has to be taken care of. Likewise, as we saw in the lowest two quartiles, poorest two quartiles, there are about 10 million children under 5 who are suffering from chronic undernutrition. So there are some simple messages that can be taken. One thing which can also be done with these messages, particularly the message on chronic undernutrition, you can link it to the economy of the country. So for example, there are meetings where I say that these children will form the bulk of your informal sector workforce, which will be driving India's economy, because India's economy is already 65% urban. Seventh lesson, which is the second last lesson, I just have the eighth lesson. Work closely with the government system and key influencers. There are two lessons within this which I'll go over. The first is facilitate formal documentation within the government system. All bureaucracies need a paper trail, whichever level. So you need to have this. So to help institutionalize decisions, formal documentation is important, which serves as a vital reference for future. Because the officer is likely to change, retire, get transferred, anything can happen. But it's only the paper which will last beyond that, or the file. Documentation is by way of signed recording of meeting decisions, letters of senior officers communicating decisions, forwards to workshop reports. We utilized whatever we could. Reports of study tours to learning sites, study tours of the officers. And as I said, this helps maintain continuity and overcome difficulties associated with transfer of officers. The second aspect of working with the government is to identify champions within the government system and motivate them. So if we can motivate these champions within the system, facilitate study tours for them, that will keep the momentum going. I see some smiles, which makes me a little assured that this probably, is relevant to some other country settings also. The last lesson that we learned, which is also related to a question which was asked in the previous section, is that we need to plan for long-term engagement, remain flexible and responsive. Because the government authorities keep changing, the persons keep changing, if you have to bring in something, some policy change, you have to be there for the long haul. There's the need for your orientation to be different from a government officer who will probably go from one posting to another posting. The flexibility is in the sense that you are utilizing whatever knowledge, experience, data you have to the requirement of a particular officer or a system, because they would have different requirements at different points in time. We have to learn the skills to be responsive to the bureaucracy so that trust is built and cemented brick by brick, and continue to capitalize on small intermediate successes. I just list a few of the successes that have happened. A national task force for guidelines for urban health was set up in 2005-2006. This report is available on the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare website. So anybody can Google Urban Health Task Force, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, India. You will find this. A circular was issued to states to prepare maps of all cities with listed and unlisted poverty clusters plotted in 2008. Likewise, there is another ministry which is called the Ministry of Housing and Urban Poverty Alleviation. They were putting together a housing policy which is called Rajiv Awas Yojana. So this was released in December 2010. I had the opportunity to interact with the person in charge of this particular program, and they agreed to include that all unlisted poverty clusters will be included. Now, once the unlisted slums are included in a housing policy, then the whole debate on illegality ends, because the human beings are not illegal. It's only their entitlement to house which is illegal. Those people are not illegal. So this has been, I think, a very important development. And very recently, the Ministry of Health has announced the launch of the National Urban Health Mission after a very long wait of many years. You will find on the Ministry of Health website 2 versions of the Urban Health Mission, and probably in the next 2-3 years there will be some sort of working guidelines. This is my last slide. I have 2 messages which I thought were good. Perseverance is a great element of success. If you only knock long enough and loud enough at the gate, you are sure to wake up somebody. I mean, I don't think there's anything better than this summarizes what I'm trying to say. You need to wake people up. You just have to keep knocking. And the second thing which I like immensely from Helen Keller is, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. So build a broad constituency of people who associate themselves with the cause. They may be sitting in Mumbai, I may be sitting in Delhi, somebody may be in Kolkata, but if they feel for the cause and there's a constituency of supporters that is built, there's a bigger voice. Thank you.
Thank you very much for staying, although the session went quite beyond its time. But I thought it was useful to go through all the elements since they could be useful to you in the audience.